Hey guys, what's going on? In this video, I'm going to share with you how I created the element exist sequence, and I'm really apologize why I am just doing it now. And there's already a lot of question regarding it, and I wasn't able to cover that on my previous video tutorial. So let's do this today, and I think it would be better if I show you how I created it instead of sending just the SAML file for you so I can explain some of the activity that I use and the structure of the sequence. So let's go ahead, let's start this. Just open your UiPath Studio and then look for the process button or icon and click that. And then once this form pop up, make sure to name it. Let's call it element exist, or maybe let's put an underscore. And if you want to add any description, go ahead and do that. You can do that. And after you name your new process, hit the create button. Okay, it's currently slow, but just bear with me. Okay, we have it now. We can now start it. So let's start with adding a new sequence. Let's name the sequence element exists without an underscore. And once the sequence is open, the next step that we need to do is to add two arguments. So one in argument, which should be the element source, and we need another one argument which will store the result of the sequence. So let's call that element found, and that should be an out direction type, and the argument type should be boolean because the value it will contain is either true or false. And then we also need a variable. So to add a variable, you need to click the sequence, and what should be the better name for this variable? Maybe counter counter bar variable. This variable should be an integer because we will increment it. So go ahead and add an integer. So the first activity that we need to add is a do while condition. So go to your activities, look for the do while and put that in here. And then we need to put a condition in here that loop should continue, or should we use do while or do until? Okay, let's say do while counter bar is less than or equals to 10. So this number 10, that will be the limit of my loop. There are other options to do that. You can also create another variable or another argument where you can specify what will be the limit of your loop. But in this example, it will be fixed on this one. It should be 10, or element found is equals to false. Alright, so the loop will continue until my counter variable is less than or equals to 10, and at the same time, or maybe while the element found variable is equals to false. If one of the condition is met, then the loop will stop. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that. Do we have any error? None. So let me assign a default value to this counter variable. Let's put 1. Was that saved? Okay. So now in this sequence, I think we need to add another sequence. So let me add a sequence. So what I want to do is, or maybe we can use the default value of 0 instead. Alright, so the first time it run, it will automatically increment the value of our counter variable. So to do that, we need a sign. So I'm getting confused in automation anywhere in UiPath. So it's good that I can still remember UiPath activities versus automation activities. But anyways, um, let's put counter bar. Should be counter bar, and the value should be counter bar plus one. So that's how to increment a variable in UiPath. And then after that, we need to add a delay. All right. So in this delay, um, duration should be, well, this is also uh, depends on you, but for me I will be using 3 seconds delay. So if I have a limit of 10 loop and I have 3 seconds per loop, so that's a total of 30 seconds only to wait for the element to exist. So if you want, you can increment this to 5 seconds, but what I am doing is that I will always put a 30-second wait time for each of the element that I want to check prior I trigger them. So let's put a delay in there, and now let's add another activity. So that's the element exists of UiPath. Is that element? Yep, element exists. So here we need to indicate an element in our browser. So let me just put or indicate any element. Let's say for this, for example, this element, but we need to edit the target attribute or target property of this element. Go to selector, and then we need to delete this and press OK. Now instead of a source code, we will be using our variable element source. Remember that is our um, out type of argument. So whatever source we pass into this selector, that will be the selector that this activity will look into from web page. So there's another required property in this activity, which is the output. So if it exists, we need to store the value to our variable element found. Is there any validation ever? No. So I think it should be good. So, right. I'm not sure if I missed anything, but I think we can try it. So go ahead and click the save button. And wait, let me create a new sequence. Let's say try only. So in this example, I want to check if this Google search button exists before I click it. So what I'm going to do is, well, I need to inspect first this element. So we need to have the UI Explorer, and let's wait for it to come up. Now let's indicate an element from the screen. Let's use that button. So like on that example, if I want to use this, let's remove the space. I just need to copy that, and then in this example, I need to call the, or I need to invoke the element exists that we just created. And now you can see in here that it has two arguments, so we need to populate this one. And wait, I need to create a variable. Let's say is exists. Should be a boolean. So let's pass the result to that variable. Right now, we need to have an if activity that if is exists is equals to true. Then what it's going to do is to click that button, So I think we can test it. So to test a single sequence, we need to choose the debug run file. Let's try if it will work. On. Okay, it wait for I think 30 seconds before it click the button. So maybe there's something wrong with my do while. Okay, I think instead of or, maybe I need to change it to end, because even if the element found is true and the counter bar is less than 10, then it will still continue the loop. So let's change it to end and let's save the sequence. Now let's try it again. Let me just okay, I think we're good on that. So now let's try this. Should click the button immediately. It should not be. Oh, okay, that's working now. So, yep, I just only have a very simple example on that, and maybe you cannot appreciate why to use this sequence if I can just easily click that. But in some other processes where, especially if the next page took time to load, then it would be better to check first if the element you are going to trigger next is existing within that page, or else if the page load and the element still not present on the page, then you will probably encounter a problem. That's why I created this sequence. So I think it's working now, but to further test it, let me modify the selector. Um, Maybe let's put something wrong, or let's just remove this HTML tag, select OK, and then let's put a right line in here, the element not found. So there's no action click that's going to happen if this is correct. So let's try to run it again. Let me check the site first. Um, Run file. So the expectation is that we will be waiting for 30 seconds and nothing will happen because the element source that we put into the element source argument is not valid. I'm not sure if it will throw an error or anything. So let's see. Okay, so nothing happened, but let's check the output and it says that element not found. So it means that our code is working. And right. Okay, so I think we need to have another one example. So in this example, what we are going to do is we will start from this Google page, and then we need to type in UiPath keyword and click the search button, and then this another page will load, and what we need to do is to click this uipath.com link. But before we click that, we will ensure first that this element is existing within that page before we do the click activity. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's utilize this try only sequence, but let me remove all the Okay, so let's start with clicking the, oops, let me try it again. Let's start with typing in UiPath in here. So it should not be click, it should be type into. Let's look for type into, indicate that on the screen. Then let's put UiPath or UiPath. Uh, Simulate type. No, let's not simulate type. And after we input that, we need to have the click button in here that will click this button. And again, the expectation is after you click that, you will be redirected to this page, and we need to ensure that this element exists prior we click it. So we need to call our select our sequence. So go into your project and then invoke this sequence. You can just drag that, or you can use the invoke activity. And here in the import arguments, you need to provide the source. So again, we need to use this UI3 and click indicate element and indicate this link, right? So let's just put that in one line and copy that source code, control C, and then let's go back again to import argument, and now let's put that source code. And here let's put uh, this exists, and right, okay. Now we need to put a condition. So go to your activities, look for the if activity, and if is exists is equals to true, then let's click that link. Let's indicate that. Else we need to have a write line saying UiPath link not found. So once you've done that, go ahead and hit the save. Now let's test it by selecting run file, but we need to put this back from the original page. Go back here. Oops. Now run file. Okay, so instead of clicking the button, it clicks something from the result. So let's stop this. I need to modify this. Instead of clicking this button, I think it would be better to is this clickable? UiPath. Maybe I need to add a click activity here. Let's just try. After you input the UiPath, let's just click in here to remove the result drop down. Uh, Type into, then click on the, okay. Now let's try it again. Okay, let's remove that value. No, no, no. And let's try run file. I don't know what's happening. It's clicking that. Or maybe I need to, no, no, no. Let's delete that. That's not a good example. Oh, we need to stop it. I'm sorry. Send hotkey. Let's use send hotkey instead. Let's use the tab. Where's the tab in here? There. So after you type UiPath, it will perform tab key and then click this button. So I hope this one work. Alright, let's run file, tab, and then click. And okay, so why you are not getting that path? It should click that path or that link. I'm not sure what's going on, UiPath. So we just need to wait for 30 seconds. And what's happening? I think it's already more than 30 seconds, is it? Okay, there's probably something wrong. Let me check that. Okay, nothing is happening. Let's stop it. UiPath Google search. Oh. Yeah, it's because of the title. Alright, let's just use this small letter UiPath and let's save that now. Let's try to run it again. I think it will work this time. Hopefully. Run file, type in UiPath, click Google search, and there you go. Just because of the title. So, one good lesson is that make sure to always check the code that you will put into this element source argument because it's a case sensitive uh, value. So you need to ensure that you have the proper casing of the characters. Like on this one earlier, it's a capital U and capital P. That's why when it's searching the element, it can find the title on my browser. So I think that's all that we need. So again, you cannot use it every time you need to trigger an element because it will um it will have a lot of it will add a lot of sequence on your project. Just use it on those complicated element that you are having trouble, especially those element existing on a web page that sometimes it loads after 30 seconds, then sometimes it loads after a minute. So you cannot really have a proper estimate of when this element will load. So in that case, you can use this element to ensure that the element will load before you, for example, click it, or if ever, for example, it's a drop down, you can ensure that that drop down is loaded before you select an option. So it's for you to customize. Again, it's just easy. It just contain, I think that's only 5 to 6 activities, and that's all that you need. Just make sure to add two argument, one for the element source where you will store the Source code of the element found will be the variable that will handle the result. And then inside you need one variable that will serve as a counter, so to have a loop limit. So that's depend to you. You can modify this if you are not good with 10. You can add that. And then the delay, by default I just use 3 seconds, but again you can also add another second just to ensure that everything will be properly loaded before you do the next action. So I think that's all that you need for the element exists sequence, and I hope that I was able to show it or share it in a understandable way. But if you have any question, just put that on the comment section of this video and I will be glad to answer those. So that's all for me. Thank you for watching and have a great day ahead. Bye bye.